Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into a case that, well, it's chilling, isn't it, Ted Bundy? Enduringly perplexing.
Absolutely. And we've got quite a mix of materials to work with. News reports from the time, legal viewpoints, psychological takes.
Right, and even a detailed YouTube transcript that lays out the timeline and tries to get into his head, psychologically speaking.
The goal here isn't just, recounting the horrors. We want to understand, or try to understand, what fueled these acts and why we're still so fascinated, so disturbed by it all.
Exactly. So source-wise, we've got this Iranian news report covering the crimes, the capture, a legal blog looking at, well, what does serial killer actually mean legally and how it fit Bundy? Then an academic piece on just how tough it is to investigate these kinds of serial cases. Bundy's a key example there, obviously.
Makes sense.
We've also got a blog diving into the psychology, specifically the necrophilia aspect. Pretty dark stuff.
Very.
And that YouTube transcript, which is great for the chronology, but also adds those psychological layers.
So for you, the learner, our mission today is really to cut through the sensationalism. We want to pull out meaningful insights, into that kind of mind, the investigation hurdles, the impact that lasts. A solid, concise picture from all these angles.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. His early life. Theodore Robert Cowell, born in Vermont, November 46. But it sounds like right from the start, things were complicated.
Oh, absolutely. Raised by his grandparents. And for years, he thought his actual mother, Eleanor, was his older sister.
Wow.
Finding out the truth later, by all accounts, that deeply, deeply unsettled him. You can only imagine the identity questions swirling around.
Yeah, and then the moves. Tacoma in 1950, name changed to Nelson, then Bundy when his mom married Johnny Bundy. That's a lot of disruption.
It really is. And his teen years weren't easy either. Descriptions say shy, bullied by older kids, and that connection with his stepfather never really formed. Stephen Michaud's book, The Only Living Witness, paints a picture of a pretty unhappy adolescence. Hints of something brewing under the surface, maybe.
So, moving into young adulthood. Graduates high school, 65, scholarship, University of Puget Sound, then transfers to UW, University of Washington, psychology and Asian studies. And it's around then, 67, he meets Stephanie Brooks. Sounds intense.
Yeah, the reports say they fell hard, fast. Seemed like a really significant, maybe even positive time for him initially.
But then...
Well, he transfers to Stanford in 68. She graduates not long after and just ends it. Abruptly.
And your reason given?
Later on, it came out she felt he didn't have real goals, lacked ambition. She couldn't see a future.
Ouch. That must have stung.
Devastating, by all accounts. His grades tanked, he dropped out of college. Then he travels, goes back east to Vermont, and that's when he finds out the truth about his parents.
Right, the whole mother-sister thing, on top of the rejection.
Exactly. Likely just compounded all those feelings of insecurity, questions about who he even was, a real double whammy.
Yeah, a profound shock. But he does go back to university in 69, and this time, he nails it academically.
Right, excellent grades. And it seems like part of the drive was wanting Stephanie back, but she wasn't interested.
Still no.
Nope. Despite that rejection, though, he gets involved in politics.
Yeah.
Starts working at a Seattle crisis clinic, too, which is fascinating because that's where he crossed paths with Ann Rule.
The author of The Stranger Beside Me. Wow.
It's this duality that's so striking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Outwardly, he seems engaged, helpful even. Politics, crisis work. But inside, there's this turmoil from the rejection. And, well, we know it came later.
It's jarring.
And he starts another relationship with Meg Anders, a divorce secretary. Even acts like a father to her daughter. But he's still contacting Stephanie on the side.
Really? Wow, with Meg.
Yeah. And there's that weird incident where he supposedly saves a kid from drowning, gets hailed as a hero briefly. It's just this baffling contrast.
Helpful citizen, potential hero, and something else entirely. He graduates UW in 73, gets into law school in Utah, but puts it off.
Yeah, delayed enrollment. Mainly because of the relationship with Meg, and his work for the Republican Party kept him busy. But then, on a trip for the party, he runs into Stephanie again.
No way, after all that.
Yep, and they reconnect. Start up again, even talk marriage.
Yeah.
And Meg has no idea.
He's living a complete double life.
Totally. And for Stephanie, apparently he'd now become the man she always wanted. Ambitious, successful. It shows this incredible capacity for, well, deception.
Yeah.
Manipulation.
Painting these different pictures for different people. And then around New Year's 1974, things turn dark, really dark. The murders start. And the victims, often looked like Stephanie.
That's what's reported, that physical resemblance. The first one often mentioned is Joni Lenz, 18, attacked in Seattle, July 4th, 74. But even before that, January 31st, Linda Ann Healy vanished. 21, meteorologist, law student.
Also Seattle.
Yes. Blood in her room, but no forced entry. Suggests she might have known her attacker. Let him in.
Chilling. And then February 74, he just cuts off Stephanie Brooks again. Cold.
Just like that. No explanation. She never heard from him again. Shows a real callousness.
Okay, so the timeline is speeding up here. What happens next?
Well, what's really scary looking back is the pattern that starts to emerge. Over the next few months, 7 women disappear. Utah, Oregon, Washington.
7.
Yeah, and the similarities are disturbing. Tall, long brown hair, disappearing late in the day, and witnesses, several spots, report seeing this handsome guy, maybe with a cast or sling, asking for help, sometimes calling himself Ted.
Using a lure, playing on sympathy.
Exactly. That consistency becomes crucial later. Then, August 74, the bodies of Denise Naslund and Janice Ott are found. Washington, near Lake Sammamish, believed tortured, murdered, and the similarities between those Washington cases and the earlier Oregon ones, that finally gets Utah investigators thinking, wait a minute, this might be connected.
They start talking across state lines, finally.
Yeah. And then a huge break, November 8th, 74. Carol DeRanche, 18. She escapes an abduction attempt, Salt Lake City. Guy in a VW.
She got away.
Narrowly, but she gave a great description. Him, the car, first real solid lead.
Okay.
Around the same time, Debbie Kent, 17, disappears from her high school in Bountiful, Utah. Witness sees a VW speeding away. Dots start connecting.
Right, the VW description.
And there's a lull, 4 months, before it starts again, this time in Colorado. 4 more women vanish.
Oh, no.
1 body found a month later. Sexual assault, killed with something sharp. And back in Washington, the Taylor Mountains become this dumping ground. Multiple victims found there, including Linda Ann Healy, identified later. The geographic spread, the pauses, then restarting. It speaks to planning, but also compulsion.
It's horrifying. How did they finally catch him initially?
It was almost routine. August 16, 1975. Highway patrol guy in Granger, Utah, spots a VW acting a bit suspicious, runs the plate, the driver takes off, flees.
It's him.
It's Theodore Robert Bundy.
Yeah.
They catch him after a short pursuit when he stops near a building.
And the car search, what did they find?
That's where it gets really disturbing. Handcuffs, rope, ski mask, pry bar, ice pick, nylon stockings.
Wow. Okay, not exactly standard driving equipment.
Not at all. He's initially arrested just for theft, believe it or not. But those items, investigators looking into the disappearances immediately took notice.
I bet.
And they quickly see the resemblance to the guy Carol DeRanche described. And crucially, she and other witnesses positively ID him.
So they've got him linked to the DeRanche attempt.
Yes. Despite him denying everything, police are starting to feel pretty sure this is their guy. They dig deep into his background. Witnesses from Lake Sammamish also ID him as the Ted they saw.
Okay, the net's tightening.
They search his apartment, find more circumstantial stuff. They establish he knew the Taylor Mountains area and his credit card records, gas purchases in towns where women disappeared.
So the evidence is building piece by piece,
Okay.
but he's still saying, not me.
Absolutely. Maintaining his innocence,
Right.
which leads us to the trial.
Right, February 76, the trial for attempting to kidnap Carol DeRanche, and he represented himself.
Famously, yes, acted as his own lawyer. And by many accounts, he played the part well. Charming, articulate, seemed wronged, That manipulative skill on full display.
It's chilling, that ability to project innocence, but the evidence.
Despite denying he ever met DeRanche, he couldn't produce a solid alibi. The prosecution made its case. He was convicted, sentenced 1 to 15 years.
Okay, so he's in prison, but that's not the end of it.
Not by a long shot. October 76, Colorado charges him with the murder of Karen Campbell. Her body was found back in Feb 75. They felt they had enough to go for it.
So, another trial pending.
Right. He's shipped back to Colorado in April 77, held in Garfield County Jail. Trial set for November 77.
He didn't stay put, did he? The escapes.
Incredible, right? First one, June 77. Pitkin County Courthouse Library. He had some kind of special privilege, access to the library, and just jumped out a second-story window.
Just jumped.
Yep, gone. They caught him eventually, but then. December 30th, 77, Garfield County Jail. This one's even more audacious. Apparently lost a ton of weight, squeezed through a hole he made in his cell ceiling, got into the crawl space, found his way to a guard's empty apartment, and just walked out the front door.
You're kidding?
Nope, and nobody noticed he was gone for 15 hours.
15 hours, that's unbelievable incompetence or incredible planning on his part, or both.
Probably both.
Yeah.
Security was clearly lacking. He gets away clean.
Yeah.
Goes to Chicago, then hops a flight to Florida. Completely throws everyone off his trail.
And Florida, that's where the final, most brutal chapter happens.
Yeah, January 1978. He gets an apartment near Florida State University in Tallahassee. Survives by petty theft. Grows a beard, trying to change his look.
But the urges...
Couldn't control him. January 14th, 1978. Breaks into the Chi Omega sorority house. Attacks 4 young women in their room.
This horrific.
2 died from their injuries. 2 survived somehow. The medical examiner found they were hit hard first, incapacitated, then raped, strangled. Just brutal violence.
And it didn't stop there.
No. A month later, 12-year-old Kimberly Leach disappears. Her body was found weeks later after Bundy was caught again. Shows the horrifying range. Sorority students, then a child.
So how did they get him this time? For good?
Again, almost routine police work. 6 days after Kimberly vanished. Patrol officer in Pensacola notices a guy in a VW, looks suspicious, lurking, runs the plate, stolen.
The VW again?
Yep, tries to pull him over, driver flees, short chase, a struggle, and they've got Theodore Robert Bundy. Again, this time it's stuck.
And the proof? Was it clearer this time?
Definitive. Florida investigators got dental impressions from Bundy, and they matched. Chillingly. Bite marks left on one of the sorority victims.
Forensic evidence.
Irrefutable.
Exactly. That sealed it. July 23rd, 1980. Guilty. 2 counts of murder for the sorority attacks. Sentenced to death. Electric chair. Then charged with Kimberly Leach's murder too.
And later, links to earlier cases solidified. Yeah, Seattle investigators became convinced he was behind Kathy Devine's disappearance and murder back at 73. 15 years old. Her body was found mutilated. Bundy did eventually confess to that one, apparently. Though, he generally maintained his innocence overall, which is another layer of the twisted psychology. Confess 1 minute, deny the next.
So, nearly 10 years on death row. Then the execution, January 89.
That's right, January 24th, 1989. And in those final days, those last interviews, he confessed, claimed responsibility for killing as many as 40 women, 12 states, mid-70s. The real number, we'll probably never know for sure.
And that quote, the one that's always associated with him.
Yeah, the Dodson book, quote, "We serial killers are your sons, we are your husbands, we are everywhere, and there will be more of your children dead tomorrow." Just haunting. Calculated to instill fear, maybe.
Chilling. His ashes were scattered in the Washington Mountains, right? Near where some early crimes happened.
At his family's request, yes.
Okay, let's try to unpack the psychology a bit more, and the investigation challenges. He really wasn't the stereotype, was he? Handsome, charismatic, people liked him. He got marriage proposals in prison.
Right. Defied the image many had of a monster. It's thought that rejection by Stephanie Brooks was huge. Shaped his victim type, initially anyway. That physical resemblance, tall, brown hair.
And psychologically, what's the profile?
Well, classic traits of antisocial personality disorder come up again and again. Intelligent, highly manipulative, zero empathy, strong need for control, for power over others. And that blog we looked at, focusing on the necrophilia, returning to victims. It's a particularly dark manifestation of that control and pathology.
And the investigation itself, that academic article, the Farsi one, really laid out the problems.
Criminal investigations of serial murders, challenges and solutions, yeah. It highlighted how rare these crimes are, relatively speaking, which makes patterns hard to spot initially. And investigation methods back then had weaknesses. Breakthroughs often came down to luck, like Carol Dranch escaping.
Not systematic detection.
Exactly. And the lack of good communication between states. That was a massive hurdle early on. Bundy crossed state lines constantly.
So what did that article say about improving things?
It really emphasized the need for specialized techniques. Forensic psychology, getting inside the offender's head, detailed crime scene analysis, criminal profiling, figuring out offender characteristics, geographic profiling, where might they strike next, or live, data mining, linkage analysis, connecting the dots between crimes that might seem unrelated at first glance.
And the FBI's behavioral science unit was developing around this time, right? Learning from guys like Kemper, Son of Sam.
Precisely. They were interviewing incarcerated killers, trying to build those profiles, understand the why and how. Cases like Bundy's really spurred that development, showed the need for it. Traditional policing wasn't enough.
Because Bundy was so hard to pin down, no physical evidence often, because he was apparently meticulous.
Very. And that lack of interstate cooperation early on, plus his ability to just blend in, change his appearance slightly, charm people, exploit trust, that's how he evaded capture for so long.
And the trial being televised, first big one in the US, That turned him into a media sensation.
It really did. Put his manipulation skills on national display, even in court. And those final interviews?
No.
Blaming pornography.
Yeah, what was that about?
Looking back, it seems like a desperate, last-minute ploy. Maybe hoping for a stay of execution. But the analysis in that YouTube transcript suggested his demeanor, the way he talked, it showed a much deeper personal connection to violent fantasy. The pornography thing felt tacked on, deflection.
Right, fits the pattern. Narcissism, blaming others, his mother, porn, whatever, never taking responsibility.
Classic deflection. It was never his fault in his narrative.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive into Bundy, key takeaways. It's just a chilling look inside that kind of mind, isn't it? Highlights how vital it is to understand the psychology, how investigation techniques had to evolve, and, the danger behind a charming face.
Absolutely. And for you, the listener, it leaves us with some heavy questions. Bundy's charm, his manipulation, that quote about killers being everywhere. How do we balance trust with vigilance in society?
Right.
What are the ongoing challenges in spotting and stopping people like him before it's too late? And what does our own fascination, the televised trial, the endless books and movies, what does that say about us? About our relationship with the macabre, with the criminal mind? Lots to mull over.